There may be more pressure on breast cancer patients to be positive simply because there's more pressure on women in general to be smiling and helpful and perky and cheerful at all times.
What I found in my research is that many women actually feel alienated by the overly optimistic approach. They feel like they can't have their feelings of anger or despair or hopelessness and feel like a legitimate person with breast cancer, that in order to be a survivor, you must maintain this optimistic outlook and participate in what I call the tyranny of cheerfulness.
We're at mile 22.8, and they've been walking since 6:30 this morning, and these hard candies will help them to have their blood sugar to be elevated, and also it'll help keep their mouth moist, because that's the biggest problem you have at this point. And they need to keep their hands in the air because their hands start swelling. It's incredibly difficult. Actually, tomorrow's going to be even more difficult. Today's a longer distance, but tomorrow they're going to be going up hills, 13 miles of hills. And if you know San Francisco, some of them are very difficult. Yeah, I love San Francisco.
I don't want to be a Grinch and discourage people from running or racing. I'm all into fitness and everything like that. But I wish that they could also hear from all the women who have been through breast cancer and resent the effort to make it pretty and feminine and normal. It's not normal. It's horrible. It has to be stopped.
We really have softened the disease. We have a lot of people who are survivors, and that also helps to make it feel like it's a triumph, or as opposed to something we should be angry about. And I think the time is to repoliticize it. And the repoliticizing it is pointing out to people that they don't know where this research money is going. I mean, if somebody really is concerned about environmental causes of breast cancer, and there are a lot of people who are, then they should make sure that the money they're raising is going to that kind of research. You know, if you want to find out what the cause is and not have your kid get it, then you want to make sure. But we have to learn as women to ask questions, not just raise the money and hand it over and then never know what happens to it.
This is extremely puzzling to me, that so little has come from any of this research, that all of these organizations that brag about giving money to research, instead of saying what has come out of this investment, they tell you how much money they've put into it. So they say, last year we gave $15 million to breast cancer research, or in the case of Komen, I think it's really huge, like $450 million, something like that. But they have, to my mind, very little to show for it, and very little that goes beyond the status quo.
I hope the future is to find a cure very soon.
I hope that they find a cure so that my grandchildren won't have to go through what we've gone through.
That they'll find a cure for it, but I don't know if they're going to find one, but if it's God's will, they'll find it,
Find a cure. Please find a cure.
Cheers to the cure. Cheers to the cure. Come out. Cheers to the cure. Cheers to the cure. Russian Raskin to support breast cancer cure. Research for a cure. Right.
I think that the public isn't critical, even if they maybe do know, because so much is invested in pharmaceutical treatment. So we think that a cure is the answer. And if we think that a cure is the answer, we're not actually going to have a very critical perspective on pharmaceutical company work in the area.
They go with the flow, and the flow is toward looking at research that will have a marketable product at the end, something which can improve survival by 3 weeks, but which can be very profitable for the promoters for the period in which they enjoy that slight edge because of this slight improvement in survival. They do not seem to be interested in prevention, but this is how capitalism works. They're looking for markets and expanding their markets, and their understanding of how this works would be to medicalize American women.
I want prevention. And our federal government, of all the funds it allocates to cancer research each year, gives between 3 and 5% to prevention. And if you ask people, medical people, scientists, politicians, corporate people, if you raise the issue of prevention, they will say, well, we can't prevent it when we don't know what causes it. Well, how the hell can you cure what you don't know?
Well, now we're starting to have a lot of observations that say cancer is more complex, that there are 5 or 6 different kinds of breast cancers, and that how they behave and how they act is not just a matter of the cell slowly growing and taking over. I mean, we've really thought about cancer as if it were a foreign invader. The cell comes from somewhere else, it comes, it attacks, it's like a terrorist, right? And we have to kill it. We have to blast it away. We have to slash, burn, and poison everything we can do to get rid of it. But actually, it's not from outside. It's one of our own cells that goes bad. I say in the United States, it's not Osama bin Laden, it's Timothy McVeigh. It's our own terrorists that we grew ourselves. And so we don't want to, it's not the same as just blasting it out. We have to figure out why we grew that terrorist. What neighborhood? What was it that really egged it on and fostered it?
More than half of the women diagnosed with breast cancer don't have one of the major risk factors that we know about for breast cancer. So what is it that made them develop breast cancer? And right now, most of the research is not targeted at answering those questions. We at the California Breast Cancer Research Program are trying hard to examine possible environmental links to breast cancer, and we hope that will result in finding answers for that other 50% of women. But we are a kind of lone voice, and the majority of breast cancer research is not focused in that direction.
I think we're ingesting plastic. We cook in it, we live in it. The seafood is eating it in the ocean, and we're eating the seafood. It's become part of our food chain. And I think that before all of these plastics, people didn't have breast cancer like this or other kinds of cancer. And I'm just convinced that there's a link.
No, we know that only about 20 or 30% of breast cancer happens in women with risk factors. If we can only explain 20 to 30% of breast cancer, then we don't know what causes it. We're missing something big. And if we keep looking at the same risk factors over and over again, we're not going to figure it out. We need to broaden. We need to look at new things. Could be a virus. Wouldn't surprise me a bit if breast cancer wasn't caused by a virus. It could be something we haven't even thought of yet. And we really have to be creative, and we have to really take on the challenge of finding the cause and stopping it.